Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oh, You podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Oh, You podcast. Today, we are pleased to have with us Rebecca Schrag, or should I say Rebecca Mayer, who's with us today.
Great question to start us off. Thank you for having me. Rebecca Mayer.
I'm going Rebecca Mayer.
This is, yes, one of my biggest identity crises in the OU is I've been married for over 10 years and still am going by my maiden name.
But it's because when you started here, your name was Rebecca Schrag. So you've been with us from before, during, and after.
Exactly.
We're lucky to have you. So we've jumped all the way in already. Usually our first question is our hardest one.
Okay.
Who are you?
I'm Rebecca. I am a mom and an employee of the OU and a passionate part of the person who's a part of the Jewish community. Is that the answer you were looking for?
I'm not looking for any answer. Everybody answers it differently.
Okay.
So it's interesting you started with mom.
It's actually something I am working on. Being a full-time employee in an organization you care a lot about and having children and small children. A question that comes up a lot is work-life balance and things of the sort. So I'm sure you're familiar with those sorts of questions. And
I was once asked to speak on work-life balance, and I suggested they get somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Same, but probably for a smaller crowd.
Yeah.
It's something I think about a lot. And I do feel that one of the best gifts I can give to my children is exposure to the types of work that we as a collective OU are doing and passion for the community that we're a part of.
How many children?
4.
4 children. Ages?
My oldest is in 3rd grade and my youngest is 1.
And wow. And what are their names?
Tehila, then Sarah, Shlomo, and Zani.
That was a test. They asked me to make sure that you remembered.
And I got them in order.
You got them all right and in order. Very successful. And when you're not doing that, you're the Talent Development and Volunteer Engagement Director at Yachad.
Correct.
Did I get that almost correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And we wanted to give you a mouthful.
Good.
See how it'd come out.
Right. And when people ask you, hey, what do you do? Do you say all of that?
I usually don't.
Okay.
Also, what I've done at Yachad has changed a lot over the years. So a lot of times it's just easier to say.
Tell us, how long have you been at Yachad?
Professionally, 15 years. But I got involved in 7th grade.
Wow. So 16 years ago.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Okay.
Feels that way.
Wow. And what were you doing in 7th grade?
Okay. Should we jump in hard?
Let's go.
Okay. You ready?
All the way in. Yeah.
7th grade, I was in Westchester Day School. And at the time, Westchester Day School had a 7th grade Sunday program with Yachad, leading up to an 8th grade Yachad Shabbaton. And our 7th grade program was at Sports Time USA. And I don't remember so much of what happened, but I do remember the phone call that changed, I guess, my career trajectory.
Love those.
Yeah. The student activities coordinator called my mom to say, today was such a nice day. And it really seems like Rebecca connected with this population, with this sort of work. We were so happy to see. Okay, filed away. It was a regular.
Did you feel that way, or it was like a surprise?
Honestly, it didn't even matter because then I did. I got praise from an adult.
Right.
You know? So I am pretty sure that I enjoyed it, but it was more the feedback that came afterwards that I was like, oh, like, I guess this is something that I connect to, that I'm good at. And
those are 2 different things.
They are 2 different things.
You could be passionate about something and not be good at it, or you could be good at something and not be passionate about it. But here it seems like you hit both.
Yes. And I actually feel like most things that you are passionate at, you probably work to get good at. Mm-hmm. But maybe you don't see yourself as good at it because you hold it to a higher regard. I don't know. Okay, we won't get too deep on that.
We're going to go back
to the story.
We're going to go meta. Go back to the story. We'll come back to it.
Okay. Then 8th grade rolls around. My parents offered to host a graduation party in their backyard, which was so nice of them, in Westchester.
Westchester is a big place. New Rochelle or?
So I'm on the Scarsdale-New Rochelle border.
Okay,
New
so
Rochelle,
it's
Young
confusing.
Israel of Scarsdale.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you're both.
Yes.
Okay. So you started with Yachad, 8th grade party, volunteered after that.
Yes. From 8th grade, I probably didn't get back involved until Yachad came to where I was in high school to talk about Yad B'Yad. I grew up with the same group of friends my entire life who are still my closest friends today, and all of our moms were friends. And I went with them to schools and camps and seminaries and college and graduate school and everywhere along the way.
Wow.
And everyone was going on one summer program, but I really loved how I felt during my time volunteering in Yachad, what it did to me, the person that it made me feel.
Yep.
And when I heard that there was a summer program, I went to go hear about it. I think it was me and one other kid that came to the presentation, and decided right there, I'm spending my summer with Yachad on Yad B'Yad.
How many summers did you end up doing that for?
12. Yeah.
So that was a good meeting for you to go
It was
to.
a very good one. It was the first time I wasn't with all of my close friends and went totally alone. And came back as a counselor, girls' head counselor, director for many years.
Wow. You chose the path less traveled.
Yes.
And that has made all the difference. Okay, beautiful. Now, when you were in college, you got involved with a different OU program.
Yes. So when I was at NYU, Rabbi and Michelle Sarna were everything to me and my group of friends. We couldn't have asked for better role models. Sometimes when it's like, quiet and you start like reflecting, I'll hear like Rabbi Sarna's Friday Night Davening. But some of our best memories were in their home and at Hillel with JLIC. And during that time, I was teaching Tanakh at a high school, and Michelle was amazing at Kushner. It was a great experience.
So that planted some seeds to maybe not do not-for-profit work or informal education, but go to formal education. At the same time, while you were at NYU, not only were you doing Yachad, not only were you doing Kushner, you were also involved in some other Kiruv organizations.
Yes.
So school was not the most of your time, in other words, at that time. You found out how to balance different things.
So I actually learned that more in high school. I went to Ramaz, but I spent a lot of my high school career in the Student Activities Center with volunteer missions and different chesed projects. During lunch periods, we would walk around the corner to Lenox Hill Hospital to volunteer. There were just tons and tons of volunteer opportunities. And one of the very few phone numbers that I remember by heart is Miss Didi Benel Shalom, who was running student activities, who I was very close with.
Julie, my wife, was also
a
big fan. Yep.
Okay. Well, she taught work ethic. Those like 5:30 a.m. calls on Sunday, like, hey, is rooming done yet? And you're like, why are you calling so early? So in terms of learning work ethic, I attribute a lot to Miss Benel and a lot to my father, who is now retired. But every time we FaceTime him, he's still sitting at his office figuring out like something to do. And the two of them have pretty unparalleled work ethic that make me feel like a slacker. But yes, after that, it seems like there was a lot of free time in college when you're used to day school schedules.
So that's why you decided to spend more time at NYU, so you can make up more time in class, and you got yourself a master's degree.
Yes, in social work.
With a focus on?
I focused on siblings of individuals with disabilities, glass children.
Amazing. Would love to read that someday. What do you do when you have downtime?
What brings me the most energy, I guess, in terms of hobbies, I like nature. I like animals, cooking, travel, music.
Do you have a family pet?
Okay, so we were just talking about this earlier. We right now have fish. We don't have anything furry at the moment. Not everyone in our house feels the same way about animals.
So you must love animals.
Yes.
How much do you love animals?
I love animals enough that I became a vegetarian when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
And it stuck.
Was that because you saw something that you didn't want to see?
No, so most people credit like the OU class trips, going and hearing about how animals are shachted. I didn't have that.
Okay.
It was more, I was hanging out in the backyard with friends at a neighbor's house, and they were like, if you like animals so much, then why do you eat them? And I was like, don't anymore. And it stuck.
Wow, that's real commitment for an 8-year-old.
Yes.
Wow.
And I went hard.
And you've never had meat since you were 8 years old?
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. That, mistakes happen. Mistakes happen.
Yes.
That doesn't include eggs and like any animal product? Are you vegan or you're...
No. Okay. I'm not vegan, but I don't eat any animals that were alive.
What do you do for protein?
Daven that it comes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I eat a lot of ice
We have
cream.
bitachon in
Not
protein. That's going to be... You heard it here first, folks. Okay. So you graduate, you have a graduate degree, doing a practice, you're still tied to Yachad, still tied to all kinds of things, still teaching, and you have basically a decision to make. Do I continue in the nonprofit informal education path? Do I go teacher and so on and so forth? Like, who did you want to be when you grew up?
Okay, great question. Well, when I was asked that in kindergarten, I wanted to be a mermaid. So that lasted a bunch of years.
By the way, it could still happen.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
And then years later, I wanted to be a social worker because that's what I knew from my mom. And then it evolved to wanting to be the school principal. And I held on to that for a long time. I really wanted to be a principal. And I always admired the energy and the tone that the principals set in the schools that I was a part of. And I thought it was an amazing job.
Okay.
Until...
Are you still going to be a school principal?
No. You know what changed that?
What changed?
WhatsApp groups.
Really?
Yeah. People talk about like their teachers a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have like
right.
the kishkas for that.
It's really something. So being the middle child,
Mm-hmm.
right, and wanting to sort of have the spotlight on others and focus elsewhere, and then wanting to help people in the growing professions, it's not so surprising for you to choose a title of talent development, right, and volunteer development. Right.
I wanted to be in formal education for so many years, and it became a joke in Yachad because anytime I signed on to another year, it's like, oh, and this is my last year because then I need to go to school in pursuit of the things that I'm going to be doing professionally. And a mentor finally said to me, like this is a profession, like you're doing it. And why informal education over formal education? You've been in both worlds.
Yep.
I actually felt we get so much credit, and people in formal education are doing so much hard work, right? It's 10 months of the year, they're investing in their students day in, day out, and somebody comes on one Shabbaton or one summer program and their life is changed. And thinking back to all my formative memories, wasn't necessarily things I learned in the classroom. It was mentors that I had or experiences or the way that I felt coming from a program. And I felt like, in a way, guilty to throw in the towel on the formal side. But like, how amazing to be involved in this sort of work that you make such a big impact in such a short amount of time.
So don't lose that thread. Why do you think that is? Experiential education with less time makes maybe a similar impact or per moment greater impact. Why is it that the stuff you're doing with Yachad and the whole Yachad team and across the OU has that outsized impact compared with, like you said, the day in, day out commitment of class time and homework and grading and tests and so on and so forth?
Great question. I wish I had all the answers because it would make my job so much easier. But I do think, you go to school because you need to go to school up until a certain grade. when you are choosing to do an extracurricular, go to a summer program or a Shabbaton, the whole element that it's something that you're choosing to do, there's already greater buy-in. I remember seeing in one study, it's 30% of what you hear and 20% of what you read that you retain, but 80% of what you say. And when you go into these informal realms and you're getting people to do and to experience and think in different ways, they're going to retain it more because they're a part of it. And maybe they're even seeing themselves in a different sort of way than they were previously. I think that that's where our job comes in as the informal educators, is just framing it. The experience is happening. You're coming to a rocking Yachad Shabbaton and interacting with people that you may not have interacted with somebody with a disability before, or going to an NCSY event and you may have only known people that go to your school and haven't seen people of different backgrounds. If we're able to frame it for them and allow them to see themselves and point out that they are acting maybe in a way that they always hoped that they act, or in a way that they didn't know that they had the capacity, or the capacity to make other people feel, or the capacity to be a role model, that's something that becomes a moment for them, and not just, the hour.
Yachad brings the fun.
You bring the fun.
Right? And so there's a piece of that when somebody's enjoying themselves. Camp, Yachad, any of the other, projects around the OU or beyond. And there's a fun component and they're experiencing it. Like you said, they're doing some talking, right? They're bringing themselves. They're not sitting maybe passively as we might imagine a classroom, but they're speaking up and they're doing and they're engaging. Even if it's one-on-one, it allows them to bring more of themselves.
Right.
And so I wonder if it's not just experiential education, but it's my own experience.
Totally. And how do you create the leaders of tomorrow? By giving them leadership opportunities, right? So if you're taking teenagers, or, in my case earlier on, elementary school students, and saying, here, be a leader, organize a party for this organization and your friends, or be a leader and come up with, the ruach for this Shabbaton or the itinerary for this trip. Many times it's the first time these kids are being asked to be leaders. They're used to following the adults in their life.
Right.
And if we give these experiences to our youth, of course it's going to be a growing experience for them.
It's really interesting how you frame it. They're being asked. Sort of like calling up somebody's mom and saying in 7th grade, she did this great and we'd love to have her continue to do that. You're being invited in, right? So there's a piece of that is the core of mentoring and mentorship. You mentioned a couple times in the conversation, mentors. How important for your job today, or how important actually for your career to get to the point where it is today, have mentors been in getting you here? Great
question. Essential. I have many known and unknown to them mentors, but I'm a school person. I always loved formal learning, in addition to the fun outside of the classroom. But reflecting back on all of those years, I remember very little from most of my classes. I remember how the teachers made me feel in the class, and the tones and the messaging that they gave off. I think that people find mentors in many parts of their lives, and it happens naturally, but we have an opportunity to help people identify and articulate. Is your mentor somebody that you saw on TikTok? Is your mentor somebody that you know from your community? And helping people make good choices of like what they're learning from who. But yeah, I think that I have so much hakara satov. I wouldn't be here today without the mentors that have been in my life. But I also think the more that we can get people to see themselves as mentors, everyone has something to teach and give.
What is a must-have dish on Shabbos or Yom Tov?
Okay, it depends which family member you're asking, because each of my kids come with their requests.
Wow.
Yes.
Specific to each one. That's
specific to each one.
Mom.
But I feel like the most common answer is potato kugel, which makes me want to not say potato kugel, but it is.
Okay.
And we started putting it in a crock pot to make overnight potato kugel.
Wow.
Gotta
Okay.
try it.
You're free to bring some in for us to try it out.
Got it.
In what year did Yachad start?
1983. What is something that you learned from a mentor of yours that you would want to share with people thinking about coming into the helping fields, Jewish nonprofit space?
I just wrote a piece about this, and so
Totally read it.
it hasn't been published yet, but yes, you might have actually been there when he said it. We had an event in this room where one of my mentors, one of my formative mentors, Richard Joel, was here, and he asked why we refer to ourselves as not for profit,
okay,
and instead we should be referred to as for purpose. And I think instead of being defined by our tax status,
okay,
the notion that you're doing this because you feel called to a higher mission. Right? Not that you're not here because you don't want to make money, but you're here because you want to be elevated. I think that is such an important point that people think about. And people ask me all the time, a lot, like, even though it was a long time ago, oh, you were on Wall Street, how did you make the move? Why did you make the move? I'm working, I'm a lawyer, I'm in finance or wherever I am, and I'm thinking about it, but like, how different is it? How do you make the switch, and so on and so forth? And I think the notion that people feel when whether it's lay leaders or professionals or people that you're growing in talent development and volunteer development, the more you can tie them in to say, like, why are we doing this? Simon Sinek, it's about the why. Right. Why are we doing this? And if the why is an elevating why, let's go. Right. Let's get involved. Let's do it. Okay, the way we like to end is we ask you for a bracha. Give us a blessing.
I give our OU family and the wider community a bracha to recognize how the community needs to be supported and the tools and ability and passion and strength to support the community around us. Amen.
And at this time, thank you for inspiring us, for growing us, especially with what's going on in the world. Our thoughts also on Israel. Yeah. Our thoughts are on ultimately a geula, an ultimate redemption in Yeshua, that everybody should be safe and protected, and that we should keep on having these opportunities to have incredibly wonderful, talented professionals who are dedicating themselves to their families and also to our team. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.